How did this guy make that many sales and he's only been on Etsy for 5 months?
I can't believe I did it again. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to do this for, but I found another high profit, low cost build that's selling like crazy right now. So today I'm going to show you how to build it, where to get the parts for cheap, and I'm going to show you an Etsy shop that's had almost 200 sales selling this exact same thing, and they've only been open for four months. 4 months.
He's super dumb.
Enough jabberjawing, let's get to building.
So the first board I need is a 1x8 cut to 36 inches. The problem is every 1x8 I have in my shop, well actually every board I have in my shop is all curved and cupped and looks like a cooked piece of bacon. I also needed a 1x4, but look how bowed this one is. That's ridiculous. So I had to jump in my truck and take a quick trip to Home Depot. Oh, sorry, I forgot I got breakfast first. Then I went to Home Depot. But unfortunately, the 2x8s they had looked like trash. They belonged in the trash pile in a burn pit. And look how much they want for them. $16.98 for an 8-foot board. And if you thought that I was just cherry picking the top one, this was the one underneath of it. And if you thought those were bad, look at these 1x4s. Cracked. One of them, look at the cracks in this one. One of them looked like rough sawn lumber. Look at the gouges in this one. Look at that. Look at the cracks. This is the wood they have on their shelf. I'm not in the trash pile. And this is their select pine. It is not much better. You see this? Gouges, cracks, and they want $11.53 for a 6-foot piece. And look how bowed it is. You can make a bow and arrow out of this one. Luckily for me, I'm blessed with this hot wife who was watching over me, so I couldn't get too angry. And I left there and I went home. Okay, I stopped for brunch, then I went home. Sorry about the long wood rant. I ended up just going home and using this 1x10 I have and ripping it down to a 1x8. The piece I needed was 36 inches, so I had to open the garage to cut it. Hey, Mrs. Jones.
Hey, Chubby.
You got any more of those candy bars?
I sure do. Come on.
I got the lotion.
My bunions have been missing you, baby.
Since this board's a little bit long, I'm going to set up my roller to catch it as it comes off the saw.
So 1x8 is never 8 inches. It's usually around 7 to 7 1/4 if you're real lucky. I'm going to cut mine 7 1/2 just so I have some extra to play with. Now, I said this was an easy build, which it is, in my opinion, but I had people in the comments before tell me that it can't be an easy build if you need a table saw. But everything I'm doing with this table saw, you can do with a circular saw. One skill that's really valuable to have as a woodworker is figuring out how to build stuff with the tools you have. And not everybody has the same tools, so it's kind of like an individual skill that you need to hone.
Now I need 2 9-inch 1x6s. Unfortunately, all the 1x6 I have looks like it was grown in Chernobyl. Now this one right here is gorgeous. If I was single, I'd take this one upstairs right now. But unfortunately for the wood, I'm not single, and this isn't long enough to get 2 9-inch pieces out of it. So I'm gonna cut 2 9-inch pieces out of my 1x10.
The other day I was watching this video and it was talking about how much time the rapper Eminem spends honing his skill and perfecting it. So I told my wife, I want to be the Eminem of woodworking. And she said, well, you're already built like the peanut ones. Oh, I'm built like a peanut M&M. So I tightened all the jars in the house. We'll see who's built like a peanut M&M when she wants a pickle.
Okay, I got my 2 9-inch pieces cut, and I'm gonna cut them into corbels using my jigsaw. Corbels? Is it Corbels? No, Corbels. Corbels. I'm gonna cut them into corbels using my jigsaw. And then they're gonna go on to this board like this. But before I do that, I wanna drill the holes for the dowels.
The dowels I'm using are 3/8 of an inch by 1.5 inches long. So that means half of it is 3/4 of an inch. The material I'm using is 3/4 of an inch. So I wanna go in one side only about 1/2 of an inch, and then the other side 1 inch. So I'm gonna set my stop collar for the deeper holes about 1 inch and like 1/16, because you want to give it a little space for the glue.
Then I'm gonna clamp the piece I'm doweling into my clamp.
I set my stop collar, but I forgot to account for the thickness of the jig. So I gotta reset it. So the thickness of the jig is another 1 1/16, so I just gotta add 1 1/16, so 2 1/8 inches is what I need. So right there, 2 1/8, that should be perfect.
So this jig is self-centering, but you just can't get too close to the edge. So your dowels are going to be more towards the center than towards the edge. I mean, I don't think it's a big deal, but I like them a little further out to the edge.
And that fits pretty good. It's a pretty snug fit. And then just repeat that process for the other corbel.
All right, so I'm going to try to draw my corbel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down. I want it to be 1.5 inches on this side. And then I'm going to do 1.5 inches down here too. And then for the inside part, I'm going to use this can. I'll probably start, I'm going to come in a little ways. I don't know if you guys can see the top there. If you guys don't have a stain can like this, you can use like a food can or any kind of circle or roll of tape. I'm gonna get a different can. I think this can's too big. Let me try a smaller circle. I'm gonna use this can of knee scabs. I don't know if you guys can see this really well. I'm gonna come right here. We're gonna come about halfway on the circle. Let me see how that looks. I'm gonna come down a little ways. Then I'm gonna round it back. I'll come right to here, and then I'll round it back to the lower one. What do you guys think of that? I think I'm gonna bring it up a little higher so I get more of a tail on this side. So I'll bring it up to about right here, and we'll do the same thing, but we'll come down, round this bottom one. So it's gonna be like this, come down. Now I just need to cut it out with my jigsaw. All right, I got some foam set up so I don't have to like clamp it down to anything and worry about having to move it. And I'm gonna use my jigsaw with the little scroll saw blade, the little skinny one, and see how this comes out. I usually have problems with these. And I'm gonna try to leave some room, and I'll straighten it up with the sander so I'm not like right on the line. What do you guys think of that? You can see I missed the line right there. So I'm just gonna trace this one onto the bottom one, making sure my dowel holes are towards the top. Now this one I'll have to follow a little bit more precisely, but I think I should be okay. All right, so they're not perfectly the same. You can see I went over. Can you see that right there? But nobody's gonna notice when they're on different sides of the thing. And I'm gonna try to sand this up a little bit on my belt sander and see if I can get it better than that. That just shaped it up a little bit on the Turd Polisher 2000.
Now look at that. That's not perfect, but it's close enough to be a Jasco original. The only part that is a little off is right there, and I think I actually did that on the sander. Check out, if you do it right, you can take the negative and get another corbel out of it. There's another set of corbels. So I need to put my corbel on my shelf board, and I don't want it to be right on the edge like this. I want it to come in a little bit. And I want it to come in about 1 inch, so about right there. My corbel is 3/4 of an inch thick, so half of 3/4 of an inch is 3/8. So I want to come in 1 inch and 1, 2, 3/8, and then that's going to be the center of my corbel, and that's where I want to drill my dowels. And then make that same line 1 3/8 from the other edge. So I'm gonna use the Dowel Jig to finish mine. If you don't have the Dowel Jig, there's a lot of different ways you can do this. If you don't wanna use dowels, you can just drill screws from the top. You can use a 3/8 inch drill bit, do it like a shallow little hole, then countersink your screw, plug it with a dowel, cut it flush and sand it. They also make these dowel pins that you could put into your dowel holes, which in my case is the corbel. Then I would line the corbel up on those lines. This may actually be easier than using the jig, to be honest with you. I'm gonna use this piece of wood to show me where the end is. And then you would put it on the hole and then just put a little pressure on it. And then now you know where to drill your hole. So those are a couple different ways you could do that, but I'm gonna do it with the Dowel Jig. So to use the jig, I'm gonna put 2 dowels in the holes that I already have drilled. Before you do anything, make sure to adjust your stop collar to a 1/2 inch at this point. I almost forgot. So to get a 1/2 inch past your Dowel Jig, you would have to put your stop collar at about 1 inch and what is that? Not at 5/8. And that'll give you a little bit more than a 1/2 inch. So you have room for glue too. I'm gonna do a test run in this scrap board that I have. Oh, perfect. So now to use the jig on a flat area with no edge, you're gonna take your corbel,
place it on top of the board that you're gonna drill the dowel holes into, and align up the two backs so that they're even. You're gonna have a center line on your jig. You wanna align that center line, and it's really hard to see because they're both black, but can you see that? You're gonna align that center line up to the center line we made on your wood. Okay, when you got your center line lined up, and then you got this back edge lined up, clamp them all down. So now there's a slot in the front of this jig, and you slide that slot on top of the dowel that you have sticking out, and it should make the hole exactly where your dowel's at on that center line. All right, now let's try it out. You ready? Bam! Look at that. I've come a long way. Go back in my old videos of how many times I messed up trying to use a dowel jig, drilling holes through the wood. I finally think I have it down. Then just repeat that whole process for the other side. All right, let's try this side. Bam! I'm like the Happy Gilmore of woodworking.
Okay, you're delusional.
Okay, so before I glue this together, I need to put a 1x4 back here like this. And then it's not gonna go straight up against there, it's gonna be raised up a little bit. So I need to figure out the distance in between there.
So the measurement looks to be about a bee's willy shorter than 32 5/8.
All right, let's see. I'll probably have to cut this down a little. Oh my God, guys. Oh, do you see this? That was the first cut. Oh, it's gotta be out of square. I'm like, oh, look at, I don't know if you guys can see, that's square. Look at this. This is the first cut. I'm not making this up. This is not fancy editing like you may see on some other channels. This was my first cut. I'm like Norm Abrams reincarnated. Wait, he's still alive, isn't he?
I am too smart. I am too smart.
So now I need to put the dowels for the 1x4. This part's gonna be a little bit more tricky. I'm gonna use these 2x2 blocks for spacers. So it's about 1.5 inches from the back. It's just a block. It's not gonna stay there, only for the assembly, just for a reference. If you want, you can make a line on here somewhere on the two pieces so you don't confuse them and you know where to line them up again once you get your faces. That way you don't drill the wrong side. I always do stuff like that. So first I'm gonna drill some holes in the 1x4.
Oh, what are you doing? It looks good.
You like it?
Yeah. Very nice.
I don't have it glued together yet. I gotta drill the dowels for these.
No, it's very pretty.
You're very pretty.
Suck up.
So the center of a 3/4 inch 1x4 or any 3/4 inch board should be 3/8. I like to double check it from the other side. So the center of this board is between those two lines. Once you find the center of your board, just put your jig on here and then adjust the fence to this lines in the center. I know you really can't see that line very well.
So even though I got the fence on this thing dialed in, another way you can make it even more accurate is to mark the back of your board, which side is gonna be the back, and then take your jig, or make sure when you drill your holes that the fence on your jig is up against the back part of it. So that way when you put it on the corbel, you're gonna start from the back side and it's gonna be the exact same distance in as this. So the back of this thing is flush with the back of the corbel. Then hold on to that jig real tight like you're skydiving with a meatball sub and drill out your holes. Bam!
Will you make sure I'm in the frame? I can't like do it from here.
Yeah, you're right in the middle.
Am I right in the middle?
Yeah.
You can see what I'm doing?
Yeah, right in the middle means you're right in the middle of the screen.
Okay. Another way to make this a little bit more Badur proof is make yourself an arrow pointing to the inside, because that's where you're going to drill your holes. You don't want to drill them on the wrong side. So now here's my corbel. This is the inside facing up, and then this is the back of the corbel. Then this is the back of my board. And when I drill the holes, when I stand this up, it should go boom, just like this. And then if you notice, I got my line here. I know this is the right side because I have a double line on this side. On the other side is just a single line.
I wish I could tell you I did the double line and the single line thing because I'm real smart. I didn't. It was a happy accident. You know what they say, God takes care of the idiots. I'm gonna take the jig, I'm gonna put it on this dowel. You can only do one dowel at a time because it won't fit on here with both of them in there. So, and then I'm gonna push it all the way back until my fence is flush with the back of the corbel. Then from this side,
I'm gonna push this over until my block is flush with the top of this. Okay, and then once you get everything lined up, just clamp that down. I'm gonna throw another clamp on the other side so it doesn't move like it just did. Okay, everything is lined up. Make sure before you drill your hole, you adjust your stop collar again to the 1/2 inch mark. Then I'm just gonna stick the 3/8 one on the dowel and drill my hole. Now I'm gonna swap the dowel from one side to the other and drill the other hole. Make sure everything's still flush. The fence is flush. All right, now I should be able to stand this up so you guys don't think I'm editing stuff in. I'm not even gonna stop the camera. I should be able to stand this up and this should be perfect. Bam! Look, can you guys see that? Oh, but look, what happened? I'm no longer 1.5 inches. What did I do? How did that move? I'm gonna have to watch the replay. How did this move? Look how far over it moved. I knew something was coming. Everything else was going too perfect. I knew something was coming. I just figured it out. It didn't move. It should have been like this. I had it like this. Ba-dur! Why didn't anybody say that when you saw me? Did anybody notice that? That I had it flipped up instead of down? I knew a badur was coming. Everything was going too smooth. I knew when my line wasn't lined up anymore.
The next day.
So after yesterday's big badur moment, I called it quits for the day. I went in the house and drank myself into a coma on mixed drinks. But before you think I'm too cool, those mixed drinks were just chocolate milk. So I decided to just leave it the mistake distance because the holes would have been too close to each other to switch it. So I just drilled the second dowel holes and called it good. So another thing we need to do before we assemble this is figure out how we want to mount it on the wall. It's easier to do now before you have this board attached to everything. This is that little 1x4 backboard that we got. What I usually do, my go-to, is usually a keyhole slot. And I do that by using a keyhole slot bit in my router. The problem with that is you kind of need a jig to do that, or you need a router table. I'm going to give you some alternatives. Another thing you could do is if I would have thought of this ahead of time, you could have set this 1x4. You could have brought it forward and gave yourself enough room behind it to do like a French cleat system. That would have been pretty cool. I didn't think of that because I was going to use the keyhole slot. Another way we can do this, the same system I'm doing it now, is drill yourself some pilot holes. Then do a countersink hole or counter bore, and so your screw head sits below the surface, and you would do like a 3/8 or something like that. And then they make these plugs, these little wood plugs or wood buttons they call them, and you put that on the top, and then it covers your screw holes. This is the back board. This is the 1x4, the back 1x4. This is where my keyhole slots are going to go into. So the first thing I like to do is figure out where the center of this board is. So 1/2 of 32 and 5/8 is 16. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 16ths. So then I'm going to go from that halfway mark, and I like to mark over 8 inches in both directions from the center. So now I got 16 inches between my keyhole slots. And the reason I do that is because that's the stud spacing in a house. So if you wanted to hang this right into studs, which I usually try to do, I always try to find studs rather than them drywall anchors. You have the capability of doing that because they're 16 inches apart. Then I make a line at my 2 marks. I mark which side is the top of my board because you want to make sure your keyhole slot's like this with the big end on the bottom and the small end on the top. So when you put the screw in, it hangs on there. Trust me, I've done it upside down before. So I made this really simple keyhole slot jig to help guide my router. And then I have this little line to mark the center, and I just match that line up with the line on the jig. And I have some play in there because not all 1x4s are the same size. Then I just clamp it to the board like so. One clamp there, one clamp here. Then I just start by resting the router on the back of the jig and then slowly plunging into the wood, pushing it forward until it stops against the front of the jig, and then slide it back till it stops and pull it out. And bam, keyhole slot. Now you don't need any hardware to hang this on the wall. So now I'm going to sand this whole thing down with 150 grit sandpaper and get it ready for assembly. Speaking of getting ready, it's almost summertime and we need to get our dad bods and mom bods ready for the summer. So I present to you my new channel, Jasko's Woodworking Out.
Adrian!
I'll teach you how to do wood planks.
2.
We'll do drill presses, bench sanders.
Sand the bench.
You'll learn my patent pending cross sanders.
1, 2. Rip that plywood. Rip that plywood.
We'll get ripped like plywood.
Rip.
There's something wrong with him.
Okay, this is for reals. The last thing I did before assembling it, I did a quick chamfer on everything. I even did a chamfer on the corbels. I was chamfered in the edges, and I chamfered the back edge that goes against the wall. Now it's gonna be like a little dust trap. I'm just gonna tell my wife that I did it on purpose, that it keeps the dust off the top of the shelf. She won't know, unless you guys tell her.
Okay, so now it's time to assemble this thing. It should be pretty easy. I'm gonna start with the corbels and the backboard. I'm gonna put my dowels into the backboard. Oh, I didn't even put glue. I'm gonna start with the backboard. I'm gonna glue the dowels into the backboard. Make sure your keyhole slots are facing the right way before you glue the corbels on. And I'm just using Tight Bond 3 for the wood glue. And then before my wood glue dries, I'm gonna clamp the corbels to the backboard. You know, I forgot, if I clamp this on there, it's gonna leave yellow marks. I forgot to put tape on these. Whenever I use these Harbor Freight clamps, they leave oil marks on the wood. I don't know if anybody else has that problem. I asked you guys before, a lot of other people said the same thing. So somebody had a really smart suggestion. I usually put a block of wood in there to keep it from touching my other wood, separate it. You know what I'm trying to say. And somebody said, just put a piece of tape, which seems like a very simple solution. I like using the little silicone glue brushes especially when I'm doing dowels, because it's easier to get it around the dowels and stuff than using your finger. What are you crying about? You'll heal up in a few minutes. Don't worry about it. I wanted to ask you guys a favor. If you guys could please, if you're enjoying the video, that is, give me a like, give me a comment, share the video, subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. It really helps out our channels and lets YouTube know that you like what we're doing. I can't live off my looks forever, so I really appreciate you guys. And also, there's that hype thing. Some people can do it, some people can't. If you can hype me and you want to hype me and I'm doing a hypey job, well, get your hype on. Okay, I'll just let that dry for a little bit, and then we'll move on to staining it. When I did the rocks for Jesus' tomb, I used this dark walnut water-based Behr stain. So I've been experimenting with them because it's really nice that they dry in a few hours and I can get on to clear coating right away. So these are the 4 that I picked out. And I got a couple pieces of wood here. That's the same wood the shelf is made out of. Okay, so this was the mahogany. That's the special walnut. This is the dark walnut. And this is the golden oak. But I think I'm gonna go with the dark walnut on this one. Before I clear coat this, I just wanted to show you guys what how the water base came out. I wasn't real happy with it. It was really hard to use. By the time I did this part and then came back to here, it gave me like an overlap and left this part darker. It darkened in the middle where it kind of overlapped a little bit. It was easier on an open area like this. It's even worse, like you see this right here, but you could see like something going on in there. Yeah, it didn't come out too good. In all the corners, you see like, I don't know what happened right here. It made some kind of a circle. And then where you overlap from here to here, it kept leaving streaks right here. So yeah, the water-based, it's not as good as I thought it was gonna be. It's easy if you're just doing one little piece of wood, but when you're doing a whole big piece like this, it didn't work out too good. Now for the top coat, I'm just using a Behr water-based polyurethane, and it's a matte finish. I know I use a lot of Behr products. I'm not sponsored by them at all. I just happen to like their products. Then I sanded in between coats with 400 grit sandpaper. Okay, so this is my 4 hook choices that I have, going from least expensive to most expensive. I got these off of Amazon. This is just a wood peg that I dyed. This is 43 cents a piece. This is a little cast iron hook. That is $1.90 a piece. This is a little metal horseshoe. This one was $2.80 a piece. And this is the most expensive. This is like a railroad spike.
This one was $5.60 a piece. But if you go and buy these in bulk, there's a website you could buy stuff in bulk. And a lot of the stuff that you see on Amazon, these people are buying in bulk from other places, such as Alibaba. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Alibaba. It's a website. You could get hooks just like this for 35 cents a piece, but you have to buy a minimum order of 500 hooks. So that would be like 175 bucks. So it'd be a couple $100, but if you were making a bunch of these, then it'd be worth it, you know, because you're getting them for 70 cents a piece. And I think these look a lot better than the ones most people are selling with these wood spikes. And these seem to be going for a higher price when they have a fancier hook like this. Now I'm going to use this hook because I like how big this hook is. So, and that's the one my wife decided on. So you know how that goes. Whoop-a! So now I need to figure out my hook spacing. And to do that, I need to figure out the length of the board I'm using, which is 32 5/8. And then I want to divide that up. I'm doing 5 hooks. So I need 6 spaces because you don't count the hooks. Those go in between the spaces. So if you've got 5 hooks, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hooks, then you're going to have 6 spaces. So if you divide 32 5/8 by 6, you get 5 inches and 7/16. So that's going to be every 5 inches and 7/16 I'm going to have a hook. If your tape measure doesn't show you what are the 16ths and the 8ths, if you don't know what a 16th is, it's the smallest little notch. And most tape measures have it on there. They just don't have it labeled. This is a really cheap tape measure that I get from Amazon. This one actually will mark the 8ths. See how it says 1/8 and 1/4, and then in between all those 1/8 marks where you see the red numbers, those are 16ths. So that's 5/16, that's 7/16 right there, just below the 1/2 inch. And this is a pretty cheap tape measure from Amazon. I see a lot of online carpenters using this one. I got a Milwaukee one. It calls out the 8ths, but it doesn't call out the 16ths. But I know, you can count them. It's the small dashes in between the big ones. It's the notch just below the 1/2 inch mark. I'm going to put a piece of blue tape on there so I don't lose track of where it's at. And I'll just peel off most of it. I'm going to use my speed square because I also need to mark how far down I am from the top. And I want to be about 5/8 inches down from the top. So I'm going to put a piece of tape on here too. So I know I want my screw to be at the top of that tape. So now, hopefully I'm not overcomplicating this for you. I'm going to come right here to my 5 7/8 mark. Then I'm going to come down to the top of this piece of tape. That's where my first hook screw is going to be. And then just keep doing that all the way down till you get to the very end. Then I went back and I punched all those marks with my center punch. Then I put a piece of tape on my drill bit at a 1/2 inch so that I didn't go all the way through the board. And I went back and I made 5 pilot holes for the screws. Then right after that, I went right back through and installed the hooks. Now you can use a speed square if you want to make sure they're straight, but I just eyeballed it. Then to hang it on the wall, I did the masking tape trick. Masking tape trick. I put the masking tape on the back, marked where the holes were, and then you take that masking tape, you put it on the wall, and that's where you put your holes to hold it, to hang it. Okay, before I show you guys the final project hung on the wall and decorated, I wanted to head on over to Etsy and show you guys what these things are going for, or ones like it. Here's one right here. It's a bestseller right now. Here's 2 that are bestsellers, 3 that are bestsellers. Look at how simple these are. This is just one piece of wood with those wooden pegs. Now this says they're selling it for $44, but let's click on it and see what they're really selling it for. So it says 44 plus. Whenever you see that plus, that means it starts at 44. So if you go to what we did, 5 pegs, they're selling it for $57. A lot of people always ask me in the comments, yeah, well, $57, but what about shipping? You got to pay for shipping. Well, if you look right here, this guy charges shipping to the customer. So if you were to buy this from him, he would get the full $57. Etsy gets their less than 10%. But he doesn't have to pay shipping. The customer pays shipping. So here's another one that's in demand. 2 people bought this in the last 24 hours. People are always saying they're not buying this stuff on Etsy. This guy sold 2 of these in the last 24 hours. If you do a 5-peg board, he's selling it for $54.40. And if you buy a walnut one, it's $73.10. If you were to buy a 54-inch board, it goes all the way up to $176.80. All this one is a straight board with some dowel sticking out of it. And then he shows, here's some pegs that he sends with it, like I was talking about in my video. But see how his listing is set up? This is a really good listing. He's got a video showing you how to hang it. He's showing all the different colors he has. He shows all the different lengths that he has and what they look like. This is a really good listing.
so I can see why he's getting sales. So here's another one. This one's just 2 boards. This one says in demand, 2 people bought this in the last 24 hours. This one he's just staining, so you pick the color stain you want. And then let's see, the size I did, 36 inches. $78 he's charging for this. He's using the wood pegs that are 40 cents a piece that we found on Amazon, and he's using 2 boards, and it looks like he's using like a cleat system maybe behind it, as you can see right here. Here's another one like the one I built. He's got it for the size that I built, 36 inches. He's got it for $153. You can pick a different color if you want. They're all the same price. He offers free shipping. If you're on someone's Etsy page and you just scroll down a little bit to underneath the reviews, you can see they have a little profile about the shop. He's had 1.7K in sales in 2 years on Etsy. If you were to average that out, 12 months, 24 months, divide that by 1.7K, I think that's pretty good. I wanted to show you a different one that has different hooks. You can see this one's selling for $267. It's not in the best seller category, but I just wanted to show you that there's different options. Here's another one selling for $340. So if you come down, you start to see what the best sellers are. Here's a best seller right here. It's got those railroad spike hooks that I was telling you about. If you click on it and then select an option, the 36-inch one that we built goes up to $140. And they offer free shipping, so shipping would be in the charge. Shipping something like this would be 10 to 15 bucks, I would imagine, depending on what part of the country you live in. Now here's the shop that I wanted to sell you. They have a best seller right now. It's in 9 carts. If you select an option, 36 inches, which is the size I built, but they have 6 hooks, it jumps up to $219. It's got the nail looking hooks. It's just got reclaimed wood. This is like one of those rustic builds that's a lot easier to build. You can see they're showing knots. This looks just like regular pine to me. If we go to this person's shop, you can see they've been on Etsy for 5 months only 5 months, and they've already had 208 sales. So a lot of people are saying you can't sell stuff on Etsy. Here you go right here. This guy's had 208 sales in 5 months, and let's see the type of stuff he's selling. It's all wood, coat racks, little side tables. It's all rustic looking wood decor. The same stuff we're always making. And some shelves. That's his whole page right there. This is all he's selling. And he's had 208 sales. So I still think that you can make money on Etsy in woodworking. He's done this in the past 5 months.
Well, bam. What do you guys think? I think it came out pretty good. I like it. Do you guys like the hooks I chose? There's my cat trying to play with it. She thinks I put it up there for her. You can barely see all that stuff I was showing you on the finish in here because I'm in a regular room. I mean, there's a window in this room. I got a light on this thing to light it up, and you could barely see that stuff. I think the shelf came out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments.